Progesterone is again made by the corpus luteum, this cyst that's left over after the oocyte leaves the follicle. Progesterone feeds back to the hypothalamus and pituitary to regulate GnRH, FSH, and LH secretion. In this case, it's mostly a negative feedback. It's shutting down the production of GnRH, FSH, and LH secretion. Progesterone is secreted in small amounts by growing follicles, but it should just be in small amounts. And we're going to talk about the importance of making sure that you don't have elevated progesterone levels prior to ovulation. Progesterone, as opposed to estrogen, will stop the growth of the endometrium and cause it to secrete substances to support an early pregnancy. If we look at progesterone on the graph, what you'll see is the gradually increasing progesterone level, so that early on you should not have very high levels of progesterone at all, because the growing follicle, the progesterone is not secreted until the corpus luteum here. And then what you see is a peak of progesterone anywhere between day 19 through 21 of a 28-day cycle. Again, this is when implantation usually takes place, so the progesterone level should be highest because the corpus luteum, which is there to support a growing pregnancy, should be at its most robust. When I talk about the substances secreted to support a growing pregnancy, I like to equate it really to Velcro. So I went to a talk once where somebody said you don't want the endometrial lining to be like Teflon, you want it to be like Velcro. So you don't want an blastocyst to then kind of just slough off the lining. You want it to be able to cling and go on to properly prepared lining. So when a blastocyst is ready to implant, it makes hair-like projections called cilia. And when the endometrium is ready for the blastocyst to be implanted, it has these little projections called pinopods that are only there at the time of implantation. So together, the cilia and the pinopods will cause what seems like Velcro, or a way for the blastocyst to sit and stay and burrow later into the endometrial lining. And so progesterone is responsible for this, and estrogen priming is responsible for the progesterone to work later. When we look at progesterone levels relative to the initiation of the LH surge, so for example, this is important when we want to confirm that somebody's ovulation predictor kit worked. Let's say that they've had trouble with the ovulation predictor kits in the past, they're confusing, they can't tell which day is their actual surge day. We say come into the office and we'll check your blood work and see what's going on. What you should see is at the exact time of the surge per follicle at progesterone level of 0.3. 24 hours after the surge, you would see a progesterone level of 1, and 48 hours after the surge, you would see a progesterone level of 3. We consider a progesterone level of 3 or greater to mean that the person has ovulated. So if you see a progesterone level of 1, then we can't tell if they just had their surge or they are somebody that doesn't ovulate. If you want to confirm ovulation in a patient, you have to test them at least 48 hours after the surge to assure that you have documented that progesterone level of greater than 3.